Thank you very much, Jackie, for joining this interview. I think this is quite an interesting career that you had. You started in Austria. We know that you came from Grading, is I think the name of the city, and you came from the south of China. There,
Yeah.
there you had experience of seeing and talking to tourists who visited China. So maybe you can tell this story from your point of view. Just from the beginning, how was the situation that you started thinking that now I should move to Europe to study abroad?
Okay. So at the beginning, I got some news that in Europe, especially in Germany or Austria, the mechanic engineering it's good to learn. So I'm trying to move here at the beginning, but the problem is the language. I need to learn German first. At the beginning, I cannot speak any German. So the first year I came here, I learned German every day. At the end, I need to pass a B1 or B2 level of German so that I can continue study in the university in Austria.
Jackie, if I remember well, in the beginning, you had some courses, like a mathematics courses with me in the beginning. We had the course in German, but you were talking to me in English, I think sometimes, or it was a mixture of English and German. This was quite interesting to me. Can you describe it from your point of view? How did you manage to speak both languages at the same time, and how did you manage the situation in the beginning?
Actually, for me, I think it's not enough time to study perfect German in 1 year. So for me, English is better than German now or at that time. But in this moment, both of the language could be worked for working and communication everywhere.
This is, I think, something very important that you just mentioned. You don't need to be very perfect in German, just like you don't need to be perfect in English in order to communicate. But you have this knowledge that is helping you to work in Austria at the moment. So moving to the current situation that you're right now in Tektos GmbH and you're working in Graz. So is the language that you have is still a barrier to you, or you just say, okay, the level of the English or German that I have is enough and I can communicate? How is the situation there?
I think because my company Tectos, it's a small company. There are only 15 employer in my company. So normally in the office we speak German, but if we have some tourists or visitors from another company from another different countries, we also need to speak English. So actually in the office normal days we speak German, and some special days we also need English. So both of the language in such a small company are very important. But I did my master thesis in AVL. That is different because in the office most of the people are speaking in English.
That's actually quite an interesting, because many people going to some industry, sometimes they say that, oh, this industry, they need the German language. But you see that some large companies, I would say, for example, Infineon, there are some companies like Siemens, AVL, they have this culture of speaking in English in many meetings. So as soon as one person is speaking English, or basically put it the other way around, as soon as one person is in the meeting who cannot speak German, they are totally okay and they switch it to English. So from that point of view, AVL is a good example of the companies that have this kind of culture.
That's true. That's true.
Jackie, let's go to the time that we had a project together in Villach. I remember you came and said that you want to do some project. Can you tell this story from your point of view?
Yeah, I remember the first project or the first big project that I did with you. It's about my bachelor thesis with the company Lam Research. At the beginning, I have totally no idea what should I do. So you give me really more informations and good ideas so I can follow in. Or if I have some questions, we can find it together. We can discussion together. We can communicate it. Even though we visit the company together to go there to present our task and our ideas at that moment. So I think that was really good experience for me.
So the project that we did at that time was finite element project, and you were working in a CFD.
Yeah.
And also the other project that we did on Blender, you were also using the Blender for making the realistic simulations, or let's say realistic animations, was something between simulation and animation. So this was quite nice project that we did together for Lam Research. What was your experience at that time? I think before that time you were a student, and at that point you become a kind of researcher. So how was this kind of feeling in the beginning to think that, oh, this is not, I'm not student anymore, I'm doing research? Or what was your experience during this project?
Yes, yes. At beginning, I'm only the university student. So everything what I should do, I need to ask professor in the university. But after that, I need to find my own way to work by myself, to do some research, to learning by myself, and to do everything by myself. We did also some communication together. So I think to learn from yourself or by yourself is the biggest difference between the university and the research.
Exactly. When it comes to the learning or during the project, of course, you're not a student anymore. You need to work like an independent researcher. Okay, let me go to another important question. You were living in Villach, which is actually quite a small city, and now you moved to a larger city. So how do you compare the small cities and the large cities?
Actually, in my study direction, I learning mechanical engineering. The place what I studied is special for the electronic engineering, so there will be less chance for me. So I decided to move to another city, a big city. There are more opportunities for me to find a good job. And also in these kind of big cities, there are more big companies. They need people, employer like me. So I decided to move from the small city to the big city. I think if you move to the big city, you of course you get more chance to find a better job. For some small city, they have only one or two directions, special directions for this kind of technology or for this kind of engineering to do this kind of job.
I totally understand. I mean, you're talking about, for example, the city Villach. It has one major company that is Infineon, and most of the other companies also like subsidiary companies of Infineon. So if there are some jobs, there are jobs related to electrical engineering. And as a mechanical engineer, you might have some job opportunities, but the opportunities is not that much. So for that reason, you want to go to larger cities so you get a diversity of different jobs and different companies working there.
Yes, and there is another reason is that in the big city, normally this kind of company are international, so they will be have some chance to connect China and Europe here. So maybe this kind of company need a Chinese to work with them. So I think there is also a good chance for me to find this kind of positions in these kind of companies. They need a Chinese to working with them.
This is exactly one of the next question actually I had. At the moment, you're working in a company that has international relationships, even with China. What was the effect of that on your employment? Because at the moment, one of your tasks is to go to China and to do some activities. Could you describe it on your side?
Yes, like last year we did export in Shanghai to show our technology in Shanghai so we can get more chance to find another business in China. And you know, in China now we have more opportunities to find some company as a partner. So that's one of the reasons we want to opening the Chinese marketing. In the future, we can sell our products to sell our technology to China. And also this year we are also planning to do another export in China in Shanghai.
This is actually quite an interesting, both for the students coming from China to Europe and also for companies here who are in Europe and who want to start a business in China. Let's talk about the second one first. There are many companies here who want to start a business in China and they don't have that much idea about the Chinese market. They start putting some videos on the YouTube and they think that Chinese prospect might see those videos. So can you talk a little bit about the marketing in China if you are a service company in Europe and you want to get into Chinese market? So what do you think they should do in order to enter the Chinese market?
Actually, when we have some project between China and here, because of the cultures are different and the language are different, sometimes when we discussion with each culture, with each other, we will make some misunderstanding. In case to reduce this kind of misunderstanding, we need some, how to say, a bridge to be connect China and Europe to make the misunderstanding less and less. So we need this kind of employer like me, a Chinese who can speak German, English, and Chinese, sometimes to do some communication with the project, so that this kind of company, they need these kind of people to make them fluently in the future.
This is exactly the opportunities for the students when they come to Europe. When the Chinese students who come to Europe, they might ask, okay, where can I find a job? And sometimes a job is clear. The job is for all of those companies in Europe who want to have some kind of export or relationship or cooperation with China. So this is actually a huge market for the Chinese students to find a job with those export companies. What is your suggestion to Chinese students who are searching for a job in Europe?
So in my opinion, at the beginning, you don't need so perfect in your language, but you need at least to understand what they are talking about. And the second point is that if you are a technical person, you need to learn more details about the technicals so that it can be easier to find a job here. So your language, you don't need so perfect. And the second point, you should focus on some technology points, some technical points to find this kind of job in the future. So that will be easier for you to find it. Of course, if you have some skills, software skills from the company side, that will be great for you. If you want to find a good job, you need more working experiments at the beginning or before find a job. But for the international students like me, our language are not so perfect, so we need to find some small projects that we worked with our professor, or we can also find some part-time job to do some research at the beginning to learn more about working experience so that you can find a job easily in the future.
And of course, very important is that the institute or the pathway program should also be open to the international students. Sometimes the companies or the universities are not really open to give the jobs or give the open project to the students, especially coming from the China. So at least we try to give the opportunities to the students coming from everywhere.
The opportunities for doing some projects at the beginning, it's very important, in my opinion.
Yeah, of course, yeah.